Well, hello, and welcome to, I can't even believe I'm about to say this, but season 2 of the Authors, Creators, and Visionaries podcast. I'm Elizabeth Lyons, and full disclosure, I'm not completely sure what justifies a season when you're talking about podcasts. So I've heard other podcast hosts say, this is the end of this season, or on the next season, or in season 12, or whatever. And I don't know how most people do it. Do they do it annually? Is it like a week is a season? A topic is a season? I don't know. What I've decided to do is every podcast up until this point, well, not this point, but the last podcast, which was episode 45, I believe, or 46, all of those I'm combining to make season 1. And then 2021, all of the episodes that I record in 2021, and I am shooting for at least 52 because I'm going for a once a week episode. That is season 2. And, if I feel so compelled, then season 3 will be 2022. But we're right at the end of 2020, and I can't even fathom 2021 yet. So if you have me start thinking about 2022, where I don't know what's going to happen. But this first episode of 2021 is brought to you by Mockup Shots. Mockupshots.com is such an incredible tool for authors. It allows you to upload one image of your book, one JPEG of your front cover, and it provides you with what feels like endless numbers of mock-up shots. So your book being pulled off the shelf, your book being read by someone, your book standing by itself, your book as an audiobook, as an ebook, sitting on a Kindle, being on an iPhone, whatever, wherever, however you want to showcase your book professionally, you can create an image in under 10 seconds. And I don't know what program anyone else is using, but I promise there is no way I could do it in any program for under 10 seconds. As of the airing of this podcast, they're offering an incredible deal on their biggest package. It's $118 off of their package. It's over 50% off. I will put the link for that down in the show notes if you'd like to take a look. Otherwise, keep it in mind for the future. If your book is not yet out, I highly encourage you to check out this tool going forward. It will make your life, when it comes to promotion, so much easier. So as we launch into episode 1 of season 20, or I almost said season 21, as we launch into episode 1 of season 2 in 2021, I cannot think of a better person to have as a guest than my client and my now friend, Cory Goodrich. Cory's book, we're going to talk in this podcast about how I came to meet Cory, how I came to acquire her book, Folksong, A Ballad of Death, Discovery, and DNA, which incidentally is the first book that my publishing house, Finn-Phyllis Press, will acquire. So in 2021, that's something that we're doing a little bit new here at Finn-Phyllis Press. We've always, not always, but for many years, we've published books for other people, and we will continue to do that. But now we are also stepping into a space where we will acquire books that come to us by proposal that we're just incredibly interested in making an investment in. And this book has my heart. I mean, this book is and the story behind it is so remarkable that if you've ever questioned whether or not fate, coincidence, the universe, any of that stuff is real, I dare you to listen to this episode and decide that it isn't. Without further ado, let's talk to Cory. Oh, Cory Goodrich. So I don't even know where to start this whole thing with you. I'm not completely sure if this is going to be an episode about book publishing or enough or universal, coincidence yet not. Like, it's kind of all of it wrapped up in one. But I wanted to tell the story behind the story of your forthcoming book, Folksong, A Ballad of Death, Discovery, and DNA, which incidentally is the first acquired book by Finn-Phyllis Press, which is something that I never thought I would do, that being turned Finn-Phyllis Press into an actual publishing house that acquires books.
Congratulations. You're super
thank
cool.
you so much. Thank you so much. But this whole thing is ridiculous. Can we agree on that?
There are many things in my life that are ridiculous, and this is yet another one that is also ridiculous and amazing and fantastic.
So in short, let's try to make this, I don't know how we can make this as short as possible, but what I think is really important for me is for people to understand the value of the trust and the surrender component of enough, which is what when I wrote Enough back in 2018, I think I was very clear about the importance of the why, the what, and the how. What I realized during the course of writing the book was the importance of the fourth component, which is the surrender,
Mm-hmm.
and having to just sort of let go in some ways of not of the how, but of the how it's going to look.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so there I was on a cold Wednesday. No, I don't know. It definitely wasn't cold. I'm in Phoenix, but there I was. And I had an opening. I just recognized one afternoon that I wasn't editing any manuscripts at the time. And I thought, I'd like to, I love to edit. Now I have a problem. And so I thought maybe I'll just post on social media that I have an opening. And if something comes of it, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So I posted, and our mutual friend, Barry, who I have known now for, oh my gosh, I want to say 17 years. She is a phenomenal photographer. She's your photographer, and she is a mom of twins. So the way I met Barry was 17 years ago. She came to one of my twins classes that I was holding at the local hospital in Naperville, Illinois. And the story about that is funny in and of itself. She thought I was insane because I recommended that she go out and buy 20 bottles. And she looked at me like I had three heads. And then she later emailed me and said, I'm so sorry. I really judged you poorly. And the fact of the matter is I have like 27 bottles in my kitchen right now. So I thought, I love your honesty. We became great friends. Well, she messaged me after I put this post up and said, I have this friend named Cory, and Cory's working on a book. And I have told Cory multiple times that she needs to contact you, even just to be in touch with you. And she just hasn't done it yet, has she? I said, no, I don't think I've talked to Cory yet. She said, well, listen, I'm going to reach out to her again. And I'm going to tell her that she needs to reach out to you. I said, that's great. I'd love to chat, with her if she reaches out, right? So you reached out, and it was funny because you were so delightful as you are, and you were all did you feel so what I felt from you was a little bit of caution in
Yes.
like you said, my friend Barry says I have to talk to you, so I'm kind of just like, in the nicest possible way, I'm kind of just mollifying her and reaching out to talk to you, but I already have everything I need. Like, I sense that you did not want to be sold anything, which you didn't know at the time is totally not my MO.
Oh, you're
So
so right.
but
Exactly.
you
That's
didn't know. I mean,
exactly it.
was I right about that?
Oh, totally. The minute you try to sell me something, I am out immediately because I know it.
Yeah.
I can, and you didn't. You were just so open and wonderful. And yes, you're absolutely right. I only did it because Barry would not let up. And to be fair, like at the other times she had mentioned it, I just wasn't ready yet. I wasn't at the place where I even
Mhm.
was considering publishing. I was really writing for myself. And after her third attempt, and then the next day after this third attempt, she said, um, um, Liz has a Instagram post. Oh, she has an opening for editing something. You need to contact her. Fine, Barry, 4 times, for crying out loud. And then we talked, and I absolutely fell in love with what you were saying, and you were very concise and clear and open, and not selling me on anything. And shall we continue with what happened after that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for that, because that was my intention. That's always my intention, is just, I just wanted to be helpful, and if it wasn't the right fit, then I wanted to turn you on to whomever was the right fit if I happen to know that person. And incidentally, when you and I first got on the phone, one of the first things you said was, I wanted to connect with you because Barry, speaks highly of you, and is basically bugging the crap out of me to do it. But I already have an editor. Remember this? You're like, I already have an editor. And so I said, okay, cool. Like, that's great. Do you have any questions about the process? Is there any way that I can help you just feel more connected and confident in what you're doing. And by the end of the conversation, you had admitted that you actually didn't yet have an editor. You had a call scheduled with an editor. And I said, keep the call for sure.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that was
Keep the
great
call.
too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're going to get different information. You're going to get and she may be the right person. I don't know. He, she, whatever. So keep that call and then let's touch base again next week and let me know if any questions came from that call. But da 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 da. Okay, fine. So I had asked you at the end of that, I think by the end of that call, I said, would you be interested, willing, whatever, to just send me 10 pages of the manuscript and let
Right.
me do kind of a sample edit on it. I would encourage you to ask this other editor to do the same thing. And so you sent them over. And during the course of the call, you had mentioned that you're also an actress and a songwriter and a singer and the whole shebang. And a painter. And so I said, do you have a website? And you said, yes, CoryGoodrich.com. So I go to the website and the first thing I see on the about page is Cory Goodrich was born in Wilmington, Delaware. And I had to sit down because I was born in Wilmington, Delaware. And this is not like Cory Goodrich was born in San Diego. Like
No.
I don't meet many people who were also born in Wilmington, Delaware.
Right.
Like it's
Nobody's born in Delaware. It's like
nobody's
mushrooms
born
and
in
chicken
Delaware.
farms and the two of us, and that's it.
That is correct. It's Delaware, Where, often for a reason. It's often spelled that way. So you said, yes, I was born in Wilmington. I moved away when I was 7 or 8, but some of the members of my family stayed there. And I said, oh gosh, I was there, until I moved to Buffalo, New York for 7th and 8th grade, then came back, then went on to college, blah, blah, blah. So we keep talking about this. And I said, yeah, my dad worked for DuPont because, to be honest with you, 99 out of every 100 people who live in Delaware have one member of their family worked for DuPont. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's very common. And so then you said, my biological father worked for DuPont. And right. And once people really understand this full story, and I'm going to let you share what you want to share in advance of the book coming out. And there may be people who listen, there probably will be people who listen to this after the book comes out. So people are going to, glean fairly quickly the premise of your story. But you said my biological father worked for DuPont. And I said, okay. So, sometimes this is like, I went to Ohio State and people will say, oh my gosh, my cousin went to Ohio State. Do you know them? And I'm like, do you have any idea how many people go to school at Ohio State?
Right,
like this is
right.
not, but in Delaware, it does sort of make sense that you could kind of maybe possibly think that you might have a connection. So I said, well, my dad is a chemical engineer.
And I said, my dad is a chemical engineer. Is your dad my daddy?
So I was like, we have to put this on hold. What is the name of your biological father? And you said?
Donald Garnett.
And I said, please hold. And I called my father and I said, Dad, question. Did you ever know of a man named Don Garnett? And my dad says, yes. Brilliant chemical engineer. I worked with him both at Chambers Works, which is right over the border in Jersey, and also in Buffalo during the 2 years that my family was in Buffalo. So was Don Garnett.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy. And I'm sorry. And he worked with him elsewhere at DuPont, correct?
I can't. I feel like there was somewhere in Texas. Am I?
Yeah, he worked in Houston. Mm-hmm.
And that was at the very beginning of my dad's career, I think, but I could be wrong, and it matters not. But the point is, you don't know many people because Don passed away. How many years ago now?
4 years ago.
4. So you don't know many people who knew it. There aren't many connections there.
No, in my story, everybody's gone. My father's gone. My biological father is gone. My mother had just passed 3 years ago too. So nobody can fill me in on this story. As I was researching the book and I was trying to piece together my mother's life, there's nobody left that I can talk to. So for your father, to have worked. Now you're in Arizona and I'm in Chicago too, and yet we're both from Wilmington and we both hooked up through Barry. And your father worked with my father is one of those unbelievable synchronistic moments that just it's so cliche.
Like, you
It
can't
takes my
even
breath
make it
away.
up.
No.
Well, to the point that if it were a movie line, okay, if it were a movie theme, critics could arguably and justifiably say, "That is super corny."
Yes, exactly. Everything in my story is like that. It's like, no, you couldn't write this as a movie because, well, we hope they will someday, but
Right.
everything just seemed to
Reese
line
Witherspoon,
up.
are you listening?
Yes, yes, or Jewel or whoever.
And
But
like,
everything with the clues were all there. The synchronicities were
oh my
all
god.
there, that just every time I'm not cynical, but I'm very pragmatic.
I'm
So
skeptical. I'm not cynical, but I'm skeptical.
there you go. Because I think people want to believe a lot of things and let's give them credit. We miss the people who have passed. We want to have signs from them. We want to believe that that's true. And after my mother died, I said, I am not going to fall prey to this. I'm not going to find a penny with her birth year on it and think, oh, this is a
Right.
message from my mother. It's a beautiful sentiment, but it fills me with this false sense of hope. So she's gone. I have to believe that she's gone. And all these signs during the course of these 3 years that kept pounding me on the head to say, "Oh, chick, you're wrong. There
Yeah,
are
she's still
signs,"
here. Mhm.
And this was another one. I didn't know what I was going to do with this book. I didn't know how to do it. And the second you said you were from Wilmington, I was laughing. The second you called me, freaked out, telling me all about your father, I mean, I didn't have any doubts from that moment forward. Instantly, I was like, "Yep, you're the person." And then of course I saw your work too and was blown away, and this whole partnership has been such an incredible gift to me and to this book, and I can't thank you enough, but also can't help thinking that my deceased father, who I didn't even know, sent you to me somehow.
And I can't thank you enough. I mean, truly, there are not, I never for many years, I thought maybe it would be neat. One of my greatest passions is discovering undiscovered stuff. So I guess that's redundant to say discovering undiscovered stuff, but discovering stories and voices. And I remember, I remember in our first call, you saying, "Now listen, I'm going to send you these 10 pages, but I am not a writer." And I said, "Fine, that's fine. Most of my clients aren't, or they don't consider themselves to be." And one of the things that I do and that I love doing is taking someone's story and putting words to it. I liken it to putting music to a scene in a movie
Hmm.
and the effect that it gives it. And I love finding just the right words to communicate and evoke the emotion that the author felt in a particular moment. And so I never have any problem if an author says, I have a story, but I'm not a writer. But then I got into the man and I thought, she is on crack. I mean, you are an artist through and through. And I didn't, I didn't need to do that with your book. We did a lot of rearranging, but the way that you communicate feeling and the way that you bring a reader into your world and into your heart and into your experience and perspective, I like there aren't words, ironically. I just couldn't. And so I remember just saying, okay, I didn't know if I would ever turn Finn-Phyllis Press into a kind of a hybrid traditional. I don't even know what paradigm I fit into, but where I acquire books. But my God, if you will allow me, I have to do this. And of course, if you had said, well, that's not really right for me, then, we talked about this at length and I would have supported the book and you, no matter what a paradigm you chose. But I am just, and the coincidences don't seem to stop. So you talk about Pathmark. Well, that's where we shopped. I mean, you talk about
Right.
Algonquin Road, like
Uh-huh.
we found out where Don lived. It was about
Like,
4
what,
miles from my
4 miles?
home.
Okay, that's the other thing too. Not only were you from Wilmington, you were 4 miles from my father's house, and which means you were close to me too, because I lived in that area as well. And I haven't lived there since I was 7, but that's just crazy to
It's
me.
nuts. And we,
I'm
it's
sure.
funny because you were like, did you maybe date my brother? And I thought, oh God,
I'm
because,
sure.
back in the day, I mean, I was, I was a little boy crazy. I think there are plenty of people from my past who will corroborate that. But we undeniably have, there's a cross somewhere in terms, or a intersection, whatever you want to call it, in terms of people we know. There has to be.
There has to be. I want to delve into that further. I mean, I don't know anybody that's back there, but I'm interested in talking to your parents too to see what they remember
Mhm.
about Don, because there's still a lot of there are many, many holes in my story, and I would like to know more about him. And so that just so cool. Like you mentioned the chemical that your father and my father had worked on, and I was like, well, that
Yes.
which I couldn't tell you what it is right now. I
I
never
couldn't
remember.
either, but I remember I have a few memories that are embedded into my psyche, and I don't know why, because they're odd. They're not things that you would think you would necessarily remember. But one of them is that when I was maybe 8, maybe 9, I don't know. My dad took me, and I don't know if my sister came as well, but it was like take your kid to work day. So he took us to DuPont, or at least me to DuPont, and he showed me his office, and then he gave me this square of carpet. It was literally like a 4-inch by 4-inch square of carpet. And he poured water on it, and the water stayed at the surface. It kind of bubbled. And that was because of this chemical that he had just been a part of designing, distributing, delivering, I don't know. And that was the chemical that was the project that I believe he and Don worked on together. I mean,
Okay. And how about the fact that you remember this too, that you have this specific memory, that
yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, again, I
But
have some really weird specific memories that I probably need some sort of an analysis to figure out why I remember this, that, or the other. But
but that's, you know what, that's something that I talk about too in the book, is that, like, why do I have these very specific memories? I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning,
right.
but there was coffee. I know that. That's all I remember. But there are
Hmm.
certain things that are so stuck in my mind, and that I tell in this story, that I didn't know why they had significance to me. But then as I was piecing this all together and putting the story together, oh, that's why I remember that. So there are things, I think, that we catalog them. There's a part of our brain that sort of says, this is important, remember this. And that happened to me so often. That was another thing where I was like, how how are these moments so synchronistic, and that, that all put together this big picture. Once you look at them, those pictures that you see on the interwebs, where they're, it's like a picture of a person and another person, and then you pull back and suddenly you see it makes this gorgeous, full picture of a huge picture.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I had 3 cups of coffee, so I'm not really coherent right now.
I
So
usually have to look at those for about 10 minutes because I'm overthinking it. And so, I'm trying to find a needle in a haystack when all it really is two people who make up a vase. Like if you look at
yep,
it one way, you see
right.
two people, another way, you see a vase.
But that telescoping effect of sort of pulling out and then all of a sudden seeing the 2 people or the vase or whatever, you're like, how did I not see that before? That's what kept hitting me, with this story over and over and over again. So by the time you came along, it's old hat.
Except that then as I'm reading and I was editing, there continued to be parts where I would have to message you and say, I can't even deal with this. One of them, and you could make the argument that this is a little bit out there, if you will, like this is peripheral, and maybe I'm trying to make this something that it isn't. But you have a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson in the book
Mhm.
that starts, I think, oh, I like to go up in the hot sky. Oh,
How
how
would
I
you like
like
to
to go
go
up
up in the swing? Mhm.
up in the swing. And I always say sky. But the reason I think I say it is because my daughter Grace, when she was in preschool, she memorized that poem. And I remember her, again, this is another weird embedded memory. She was swinging on the swing set in our backyard with her delightful lisp, which was in full force at that point, just saying, oh, how I like to go up in the sky so blue, because she said up in the sky, not up
Uh-huh.
on a swing or whatever. And I just thought, but that's not the only quote unquote coincidence in the book. There are many, 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 many.
Yes, between the two of us, Alice in Wonderland, I think.
Oh,
There,
I
I
can't.
mean,
Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it just, I think my greatest takeaway from this whole experience, which is still unfolding, the book will launch January 11th. And we didn't want the book to have anything really to do with 2020, but yet, but yet 2020 in many ways has been amazing. And it's been so challenging for you because as a theater actress, I mean,
there's no theaters, so there's no
there's no
acting.
theater.
There's nothing right now. But I mean, so many of my friends are in huge financial crises right now because of this. Um, but this has been, I have to say, one of the most creative and fertile periods of my life. And I'm not thanking 2020. I'm not going to go that far, but
Sure.
having this, having the space to be able to, to think and to be able to be forced to do something creative, or otherwise I would lose my mind. I've had an explosion of creativity, painting and sewing and writing music, and I'm also doing an album in conjunction with this book. So I have to be a little bit thankful for that. Otherwise, I will just,
Crumple up
yes,
and
in a ball with
put
my
on
coffee
your
and my booze.
homemade velvet dressing gown and yes. And that's been another aspect of this that has been so fun for me because I love it when all the things that seem like maybe they go together, but you're not really sure. For example, the painting and the singing and the songwriting, those are all creative artistic pursuits, but you could look at them all as individual things. Like, well, there's the singing career and then there's the painting career, and everything has a different audience. And so to have the opportunity to pull it all together, and we did, we've got over on your site, CoryGoodrich.com. Let me just say that we
Thank you.
have
Cory,
download
no E.
CoryGoodrich. We have a download where people can get either the first chapter of the book as a PDF, or they can get the first chapter as an audio book, because there will be an audio book coming with this. And the beauty of this, a lot of people do supplemental content with their audiobook. Yours is going to include
Music. So the whole narrative of this book, it sort of had a running theme of music in my head, which is why it's called Folksong, and one of the reasons. But all this music that I heard while my mother was dying, and through the process afterwards, I thought, well, of course that has to be part of it too. So to weave the music, not only folk songs that I sang to my mother on her deathbed, but songs that I have written since then too, about her and about the situation, that is going to be in the audiobook too. And the fact that those can go together, and I think hopefully seamlessly, they just fit together.
yes,
And
they
the
do.
painting is a whole nother aspect. Do you want to talk about that at all? About
Oh, 100%. So we included a lot of your paintings as images in the book. And I think it's just, why don't you talk about the connection, the painting connection with your
Mhm.
father?
So, not to give too much away, but I am an actress and I'm a singer. And my mother once asked me, she said, "Have you ever thought about painting?" And I said, "No, I would be terrible. I'd never want to paint. No, never." Well, I didn't know that she asked me that very question because she knew that my father, my biological father, was a painter. I didn't know this at the time. So after the revelation, I was so depressed. I was looking for all kinds of ways, therapy, just ways to work through this. And one of the things that I thought I could do was to use art therapy. I found my new brother is a brilliant, brilliant artist himself. And when I saw some of his work, I thought, well, maybe this could be a good way for me to get my emotions out on the page. Normally I write songs. I could not write a song to save my soul. Nothing was coming out.
Really?
No, I couldn't. And that's usually where I pour all my stuff, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't,
Hmm.
I was overwhelmed with all these emotions, but no words came out. So I thought, okay, I'm visual too. Why don't I just try? So I drew this little cartoon, of a angsty, depressed girl, and blah, blah, blah written in the background. And then I did a panel of what depression felt like to me. And I sent it to my brother, and he's like, "You have captured exactly that dark monster and what depression is." He's like, "Keep
Hmm.
going." So then, all right, I started on watercolors and I started painting cardinals because cardinals are sort of a a messenger from the beyond. And I was thinking of my mother and my father. And then that sort of went into other paintings. And my brother Lee said, you really should try acrylics because that was our father's medium. I'm like, wait, what? Oh, he was a painter? Okay.
Oh,
And so
you
I
didn't
started,
even know up until that point.
I mean, I sort of knew, but I hadn't seen
Okay.
any of his work, it just
Okay.
was sort of talked about. And so I started painting in acrylics because Lee said that that's what our father worked in. And I'm like, I love this. So then I switched over to oils and I painted this orange, very orange San Diego sunset. We'd been out in San Diego and painted this boat and very particular orange sky. And then my other new brother, I'd been talking to him and he sent me, he's like, here, this is a painting that our father did. I swear to God, it was the same painting. The same
I
orange
second that.
colored sky, the same boat. I mean, there was no moon in my sky, but I mean, if you put the two of them side by side, you will lose your mind. And
And
I
they are
painted
side by
that.
side in the
Yeah,
book.
except
So,
they're in
yes.
black and white in the printed. But I looked at that and went, holy Moses, there were times when I would paint. And once I realized that he was a painter, I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint and I'm going to try to connect with him. I can't connect with him now live because he's gone. So maybe when I paint, maybe he will paint through me. And when I picked up that paintbrush, I knew what to do. I don't know how I knew what to do. As I said, I told my mother, no, I would be a terrible, terrible painter. I just knew what to do. And whether it was him, whether it was his ghost, whether it's genetic memory, I can't tell you.
Mm,
But now I paint almost every day. It's sort of my side hustle, so to speak. But
yes.
I love it. I feel creative. I feel like I'm tapping into something that I never, ever would have discovered had this not happened to me. And that it is such a part of who I am as an artist. And that's the other thing. I've gone from calling myself an actress or a singer to an artist because I think
Yes.
that encompasses the being an author as well, because I'm a storyteller, whether it's through my voice or through my music or through my visual things. So that has been a tremendous, tremendous gift through all of this crazy trauma. And so I'm really grateful to Don for passing down his genetic painting skills. Thank you. And,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Well, and I can't wait to have one hanging in my house. I mean, there is something so magical to me about the fact that your, if you want to call it your style, it's so it's a thread and I'm obsessed with the thread.
Mhm.
And that comes in different ways, and I can explain that and use use it as a metaphor for a number of different things. But from your songs and the way that your songs make you feel to the paint, and by you I mean your audience, to the paintings and what that evokes, to your writing and the way that it all, the thing I love about it as a reader and as a publisher is that whether you show up as an author, a painter, an actress, a songwriter, a singer, you are exactly what people expect.
Ooh, I like that.
Because it's not, and I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with what I'm about to say, but there are certainly scenarios and situations, and we see them in Hollywood, right? I'm sure you can think of them. And again, this isn't bad at all, but someone typically plays a very soft spoken character, but then when they go and they start playing guitar, it's grunge, it's punk rock,
Mhm.
it's again not bad, but just it's a surprise to their audience.
Right, right. We all have different aspects of ourselves, and as an actress, I like to tap into that. I like to play, the love interest and then the villainess, and but all of those come back to us, come back to our core, and what we create has to come back to who we are because we're all we have.
Right. And if this isn't the year to recognize that, I don't know what is. Dear Lord. So, January 11th, 2021.
1121. I like that.
1121. We should probably do numerology. I'm not a big, sometimes people ask me, what sign are you? And I know what sign I am, but I don't, and I know loosely what that means, but I think, why are you asking me? When I tell you I'm a Sagittarius, are you going to immediately know what that means? And
Oh,
they
it totally
do.
explains everything. It really does.
Well, I mean, sometimes people use it to judge, like, well, what sign are you and what sign is he and what sign are we and and I'm like, you know a lot about this. But numerology is another one of those things where I don't know much about it, but the more I learn about it, I like it.
I don't think I told you this, but I had a friend's father does numerology, and he did my chart for me. And he took one look at me and he's like, "Oh, you chose a hard one, didn't you?"
Oh, you're kidding. Like you chose a hard life?
Yes, exactly. And all the things that he said, through my chart was exactly what I was going through. Because at the time, of course, I just made the discovery, and I was like, seriously? Like, so I don't know whether to believe it or not, but that reading that he gave me was spot on, you know?
I find it so interesting, and at the same time, if someone said to me, "You chose a hard one," I would, like, look in the mirror at myself and go, "What? Why?
Yeah,
Why
what
would
is
you
wrong with you?
why?"
Why did you pick a hard
Like,
one? Couldn't you pick an easy one? What's the matter with you?
right, I mean, I know that the joy comes from the challenge and the struggle, supposedly, and all the and I can certainly attest to that in hindsight, right? But I mean, d am I that I don't know, masochist. Did I really choose to go? I don't know. It's like, oh gosh, what was
Yeah,
I thinking?
it's like if you believe in reincarnation, everybody was Cleopatra in a past life too. I I think I'd
Right.
rather be Cleopatra right now.
Oh, sing it. I know, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've never done any of the past life stuff, but I do at this point, and I talk about my kind of introduction into the spiritual realm and connection and divine connection and coincidence and those sorts of things. And it wasn't 16 years ago that I was much more skeptical than I am today, but I had some
Mhm.
things happen that started to turn me a little bit in the other direction. I started to think, well, maybe. And then it's almost like once you open the door a crack, you can never close it again. It's
Right.
one of those things, and it just continues to open more and more the more you open yourself to the possibility that maybe people do actually come into your life when they're intended to and for the reason that they're intended to, even if it seems impossible. I mean, again, you are in Chicago, which is where I moved to Phoenix from, but it was 15 years ago.
Right, right.
Who would think if I still think to this day, if I had not posted on Instagram specifically, which I rarely post that I have an editing position open on Instagram. It's incredibly rare. And if I hadn't done that, Barry hadn't seen it, and I have to believe, if you believe what you say you believe, then I
Mhm.
have to believe that you would have come to me in another way. But so I don't look at it like, well, if I hadn't posted that, we wouldn't be here today, because I do still believe that the universe would have found a way. But it's just incredibly remarkable because I find myself often looking right in front of me as though the answer has to be right in front of me. And for me, when I can open up my mind to the notion that the answer can come from literally anywhere, it is magic.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? That, like, everything, maybe there aren't specific signs, but maybe how we see them is the thing that makes them signs. Maybe it's everything's there. It's just our perception of it at the moment and how we view it. You know?
That's what I was just going to say. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to joke that when I see billboards with Shamar Moore on them, it means that I'm going to marry Shamar. Like, it's a sign, he's waiting. A few people have told me that that's probably not true, but you can look at signs in a negative way. You can ignore them altogether, or you can perceive them in kind of a what's here for me way.
Mhm.
And I have a client, Deborah Edwards, who wrote a remarkable book called High. And she is someone from whom I learned greatly the value in asking, what is here for me? What is here for me in this experience?
I like that a lot.
Right? I'll send you a copy of her book. It's
Oh,
remarkable.
yes, thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, 111, 21. I had to think about it in my head. 111, 21.
Wait, 001
1121. Folksong, A Ballad of Death, Discovery, and DNA by Cory Goodrich launches. I cannot wait. So for further information, everybody can go. Your website's probably the best place, yes?
CoryGoodrich.com, Cory.
Cory.
Goodrich like the tires.
Free download of the first chapter is there, audio. You can hear a song, the whole thing. Somebody might log in there and find out that they knew somebody that you are looking to. I mean, who knows?
Exactly. You can see my velvet dressing gown that I just made a
You
month ago.
absolutely
Too.
can. I can attest to that. You can see the velvet dressing gown. And if I get to that point, I don't know. I think we need to wear them on launch day, but I don't have one.
I think maybe I'll make one specifically for launch day. Because look, if we're going to be quarantined, we are damn well going to look good, right?
We are going to go all out. I will be in my sweatpants, mark my words, but it's my uniform. But I'm just beyond delighted to have you in my world and to be putting this book out with you and traveling this road with you. I can't thank you enough for your trust and your openness, and I thank you.
Right back at you, sister. Just keep drinking coffee, please, because I don't think we can be friends if you don't have a cup a day.
Will do. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep getting the word out, pun intended. And if you're looking for a fun, productive workshop to get your book written, I invite you to check out my newest free on-demand book writing workshop, as well as a slew of other book writing and publishing resources over on my website, publishaprofitableBook.com. Again, thanks so much for joining in, and I'll talk to you again soon.